Wake up, NHL fans. It is Thursday. This is your morning cup of hockey alongside Colby Cohen. I'm Jonny Lazarus, and we have a lot to talk about today. I might actually raise my voice and yell at Colby because we've been debating off camera for about, 24 hours, even on Twitter, talking about Alex Lafreniere. We'll get into Auston Matthews. We'll talk about Boston versus Edmonton last night and maybe some trade deadline stuff to wrap up the show. But it's going to be a fun one today. It's going to be a hostile one today. And Colby, are you ready to go? Because I'm pretty fired up myself.
I am ready to go and talk about this, Johnny, because you're pissing me off.
That was a little dynamic warm-up this morning before we got on here.
You're pissing me off because you're being a little delusional about things. And what I want to say before we get into this is today is a great day to be heard in the chat, because this is going to be opinion-based arguments. Especially for Johnny, who likes to argue with emotion and not hard facts or hard evidence. We see that in today's society quite often. But here's where I want to start this morning. Before we talk about Lafreniere specifically, I want to talk about the word elite in hockey. Okay. And here's what I want to talk about.
Well, I feel like we'll mix it in. No.
I want to start with this, Johnny, because yesterday after you posted that video of you talking about Lafreniere getting 100-point season, and look, your whole Rangers fan base came to your defense, and the amount of people that were replying to that video saying he's an elite playmaker, he's an elite passer, he just doesn't get any luck, was the most ridiculous thing and the most misuse of the word elite that I have seen as of late on the internet in hockey. When we use the term elite in hockey, we are talking about McDavid, Makar, Draisaitl, okay, Kucherov, Pasternak, okay? Those players are elite, okay?
McKinnon.
Fox, McKinnon. Okay, we're talking about the cream of the crop of the NHL. Not every player who plays in the All-Star game is elite. You could be very good. Mika Zibanejad is a very good hockey player. He is not an elite hockey player. He is not on the same level as a guy like even Panarin, to be honest, who in my opinion is an elite level hockey player. So I just think to start, okay, let's not misuse the word elite. I don't want to hear that Alexis Lafreniere is elite at anything, because right away you're telling me you have no idea what you're talking about. It doesn't mean he's not a good NHL player, okay, right? But he's nowhere near close to elite at anything.
I also want to preface that we agree on this because we were talking off air about it. I don't think Alexis Lafreniere is elite in today's current NHL. Do I think he can be at some point? Yes.
Why?
And why
can he be elite?
Because I watch him.
Tell me the players that I just named: Kucherov, McKinnon, McDavid, Pasternak, Matthews, Panarin. You think that he has?
You even miss. I think you missed Jack Hughes. I think Jack Hughes is elite.
I agree. I didn't get them all. There's maybe 15 of those guys, right, that are truly elite. Okay, you're Jack Hughes. I'd put him there. I'm just naming a few, and you mean to tell me that after seeing 4+ seasons of Lafreniere, okay, you think he can get to elite level of hockey player? Are you kidding me?
I do. Why am I wrong?
How could you even think that you're even remotely right?
Okay, can you let me talk? Can you let me talk before you cut me off? Can you let me talk before you cut me off?
Go ahead.
I've watched him play every single game this season. He doesn't get, and I know you're going to use this against me, but he doesn't get any first power play time. And
why? Why doesn't he get first power play time?
Because their first power play unit, which actually has not been good, which should be changed up because they've been struggling.
Johnny, stop making excuses. Why isn't he on the first power play?
Because you're not going to take anyone off right now with how good.
Okay, so he's not good enough for the Rangers' first power play.
He is good enough for the Rangers' first power play.
Okay, so Peter Laviolette,
but I still don't know where he fits.
Coach,
can I fucking talk? Can I talk?
Doesn't think he's good enough.
Can I talk?
You're talking.
Here's another thing too. You look at Alexis Lafreniere's previous stops. He had 2 100+ point seasons in the queue. He had 2 points per game in the World
Juniors.
Okay. It doesn't matter. He's done it at every level prior to the NHL, and I still believe he can do it. Can I fucking please talk? You
talk.
You're talking. Control yourself. It's insane.
Go.
He's proved it at every single level on his step of the way to the NHL. He is in his third full season. His first season was a COVID season. This is his third full season. He's 22 years old. He's fucking young. He's young. And there have been guys who maybe don't reach that plateau until later in their career. Nathan McKinnon was getting like 50, 60 points and exploded the first time, he got to 90. And I don't think he's actually even hit 100 yet. Or maybe he did last year. He's gotten it once, I think. But you know what I mean? Even like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins had 100 points.
You're just proving.
I am believing in the potential of a player that I watch every night who I see is a playmaker, not elite, but is a playmaker. He has chances to score goals. He's first on the Rangers and I know you're going to hate this. He's first on the Rangers in high danger. These stats matter. He's first on the Rangers in high danger chances and second on the Rangers in scoring chances at 5-on-5. And
okay, all right. So hold on. You're telling me what his expected numbers are, right?
No, those are actual chances. Okay. Those are actual.
But let me ask you, where does he rank on the Rangers in goals? How many goals does he have?
He has
14 goals.
14 goals, 12
goals. He's fifth or sixth on the Rangers in goals. So I'm not interested in how many expected goals he's supposed to score or how many chances he got. I'm dealing in reality.
But do you not look at any potential?
He's not a top end goal scorer. And then he's not a top-end playmaker.
These are yet. Okay? This is yet.
He's not a top-end playmaker. He's nowhere near close to the top of the league in assists. He's never had more than, 35 assists in a season?
39 points is his career high.
His career high. And you're sitting here telling me that he's going to be 100.
You're writing off a 22-year-old.
I'm not writing him off. Nobody is saying this guy's not a good hockey player. But when your fan base comes at me and says he's an elite playmaker, and you go on and you put a video on the internet, where you say that you think a guy's going to get 100 points who's only ever gotten 30. He's played almost 300 games in the NHL. This isn't his 50th game. Like, I am not saying this guy's not a quality NHL player, but to think that 300 games is some small sample size is absolutely ridiculous. Now, let me ask you a question. Go ahead. You can ask.
Why is there so much patience with maybe a second-round pick, a third-round pick, a fourth-round pick, a fifth-round pick?
But, why? Do you really need me to answer that question?
Why can't there be patience with a 22-year-old? He's 22.
He's a first overall pick, Johnny.
But everyone develops at a different pace.
Listen, and he is developing. The kid gets better every night in the NHL, but there's nothing about the way that he plays that says elite 100-point scorer. Nothing. I'm sorry, you're reaching. You're living in a fantasy land. Let me ask you a couple questions here. You got to ask your questions. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I got to ask maybe one fucking question. And any point I made, you try to talk over it.
Let me ask you these questions here. Let's start. Let's start with one of his teammates, Artemi Panarin. Do you think he's an elite player in the NHL?
Yes.
Okay. He's played 9 seasons in the NHL, Johnny. Mm-hmm. Okay. And this came from Singsy. So shout out to Singsy. Okay?
Yeah, I know he's against me too.
So hold on. Listen. Yeah. Uh-huh. How many 100-point seasons has Artemi Panarin had in 9 years? Okay. That's one.
He's going to get one this year. He's
get one this year. Hold on. In his 9th season. Okay. That's one. Let me ask you about Patrice Bergeron. Do you put him as an elite NHL player?
Yeah, but different.
Okay, Vic, go ahead.
No one looks at Patrice Bergeron and thinks he's putting up points. He's not
73 points is the most Bergie ever had. Do you think Lafreniere does anything better than Patrice Bergeron?
I don't think they're the same player.
But hold on. Let's just not make it overall. Let's talk about traits. Do you think he's a better passer than Patrice Bergeron?
Not right now. He's still young.
Do you think he's ever going to be a better passer than a Hall of Fame Patrice Bergeron?
He could be.
So he could be. Do you think he's going to be?
I mean, it's not clear right now. I'm just saying
you won't have an opinion whether you think
because I know if I say I think he's going to be a better passer than Patrice Bergeron, that gets fucking clipped. And
okay, let's go to the next one. This one's really good. Okay, 16 seasons in the NHL. Mm-hmm. Steven Stamkos. Okay, 1 season with 100+ points. Okay, let me ask you a question, Johnny. Do you truly think he's ever going to do anything better in the NHL any trait, passing, shooting, power play, penalty kill, any ice time better than Steven Stamkos?
I think he'll have more assists than Steven Stamkos for sure. I think he's a better playmaker than Steven Stamkos.
Okay. So 100-point season for a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Lafreniere can score. He has the potential to score 30 to 35 goals, and he can easily put up that 60 to 70 assists.
Okay. All right. Let's go to the next guy. Okay. Mitch Marner. Okay. Let's talk about assists. You think Alexis Lafreniere is going to have more assists than Mitch Marner?
I actually think they're similar players.
Okay.
I think they're similar.
Oh, so you think their talent level similar? Okay, well, hold on then. I'm glad you think that. Let's go to his rookie season. Okay, 61 points. His second season, 69 points. Third season, 94 points. 67, 67, 97, 99. He's got 65 this year. This looks like a year. Maybe he'll get to 100. Okay. Do you see where I'm going with this? Yeah. Just out of curiosity, do you see how hard it is for players that are actually elite level players to get 100 points? Mitch Marner's an elite playmaker. He's an elite playmaker. He's not been able to do it yet playing on the first line, on the first power play. And
what are you going to say he can't do it ever? Are you going to write him off?
He's got 99 points last year. I think he could potentially get it this year. We'll see. Yeah. Maybe. Okay.
Yeah, so you're what?
But you're comparing a guy who had 61, 69, 94 in his first 3 seasons to a guy who's never had more than 30 plus assists in 4 years.
I'm not making any comparisons. I watch Alexis Lafreniere play every single night, and I think he has the tools to be that kind of player. I've never said Alexis Lafreniere right now is elite. I've never said he's going to be a 100-point scorer next season. He's 22 years old. I think maybe in 6-7 years, when he's in his prime years, he could potentially get to that. That's all I've been saying.
Really in their prime at 29? I thought forwards got to their prime at like 25, 26.
26 to 29 is like usually what they say, like that window. But Panarin's 30 right now and doing it. And
he's 4 years off of that.
Which is still a lot of room to grow.
But so then let me ask you a question. Why did all these guys put up all these numbers early on and show signs and make all-star games and make
Alexis Lafreniere wasn't getting the ice time. He wasn't getting that. This is the first season he's been getting consistent top 6 minutes, and he's still not even fucking playing on the first power play.
And why is that?
He's been very good at even strength.
And why is that, Johnny?
Because the Rangers have been a competitive team. There's been guys in front of him.
It has nothing to do with him.
Chris Kreider and Artemi Panarin were both playing left wing in front of him. He had to transition. Okay.
So it has nothing to do with him. It's all about the other guys around him.
That's been the case as well.
Okay. So you're just going to sit here and make excuses and be an apologist, and you're going to say
Rangers were winning hockey games. He wasn't brought in to be a franchise savior. The team was winning games. They went to the Eastern Conference Final his second year in the league. Like, you don't fix what's not broken. Like, the Rangers were winning, and that's all that matters at the end of the day. Like, you don't care what your prospect or whatever is doing if your team's winning fucking hockey games, right? That's what matters the most, is winning games. That's the business that everyone is in, is winning hockey games. This year, first time he's gotten consistent top 6 minutes, Alexis Lafreniere has looked like a completely different player. He's been noticeable every night. He's creating maybe 3 to 5 high danger chances. I know they're not going in. He's not scoring goals. The points aren't there. But what's happening and what is there is the playmaking, is the opportunities, is him creating plays for himself and those around him. And I think he's only going to continue to get better and better and better.
Okay, so let me ask one more question for you. What line does Jimmy Vesey play on? Just out of curiosity.
He's on the first line right now. He was on the 4th line prior.
But he's been on the 3rd and 4th line the whole season.
Yes.
He's got 2 less goals than Lafreniere. I'm just saying, he doesn't get any of those.
He has the same amount of even strength goals. But what, you're going to say Jimmy Vesey's better than Mika Zibanejad? He's more than him.
I think Jimmy Vesey's a quality player in the NHL, but I'm not going to sit here and say that I think he's going to score 100 points or I think he's an elite level player.
I say that?
I'm just saying, I'm comparing him to guys who his numbers match up to in goals right now. Like, I keep hearing you say you think he could score 30 goals or you think he can have 60 or 70 assists, and nothing that we've seen lends to any of those things. I think he could be a guy who gets 30 and 30 and he helps his team and he plays on a power play. But I'm just saying, if he was so good, he would force himself on to the first power play unit. He would force himself into these situations. He's never done it. I know you want to blame talent around him, but there's always going to be talent. They're going to keep getting more and more talent. So you want to take some questions from the chat, Johnny? I know you monitoring the chat. I see
I'm
it.
Looking at it right now for the first time. We got a Stamkos is kind of overrated from Matt Bugno. I disagree with that one. I think he's actually underrated.
One of the greatest captains in the last 10 years.
Here seems reasonable. Mr. Mike 95. I'm with both of you. The chance for him to blossom is there, but how much of his success is due to Panarin this year? But also, I think you can flip that and say a lot of Panarin's success this year is because of playing with him. Panarin hasn't been playing with a guy like Trocheck, or he played with Trocheck actually most of last year, but Panarin hasn't really had a skilled right winger on his line for most of his career with the Rangers. Last year, they trade for Kane and Tarasenko, and he gets a couple looks with them. But prior to that, Panarin hasn't really had, that much talent on his line. I think part of Panarin's success this year has to do a lot with Lafreniere. And even he said that.
Colby's a bully. Shaps.
No, I think this is honestly
in the chat. By the way, Shaps is in the chat. He says,
"Oh, he was feeding me shit all last night. He was texting me all last night."
He said Colby's a bully. No, hey, Shaps, I'm gonna see you in like 2 hours. I'm shooting one at your shin, buddy.
I think this is a good, healthy debate of someone who believes in a player's potential versus someone who doesn't. And I think that's fine. Like, I don't think you're correct by saying he is only going to be a 60-70 point player. Like, yeah, that's what we know right now, but you can't. It's all hypothetical.
I just think you're being such a homer the way you're looking at this whole thing.
I think you're ridiculous though. I think you're ridiculous for comparing him to Jimmy Vesey just because they have the same amount of goals.
Well, but you're sitting here talking about his potential. Here we are.
All right, well, let's look at this.
And he's got the same amount of goals as their fourth line players.
Let's look at this. He has more even strength points than John Tavares, than I think Steven Stamkos this year. Who else is on here?
So you want to compare him to 34-year-olds who are on the 18th
I'm just saying, Stamkos had 100 points like 2 years ago.
So we're talking about guys who are on the 18th hole of their career now versus a 22-year-old.
Nick Suzuki, Johnny Gaudreau, Dylan Larkin. He's got more even strength points than Dylan Larkin, Johnny Gaudreau, Nick Suzuki.
Can I ask you a question about that then? Can I ask you a question about that? And then we should move on. We don't want to spend the whole show talking about this.
Yeah.
Do power plays, are they like a fiction of an imagination, just curiously? Or are they part of the NHL?
Oh my God. See, here's the problem.
I'm just asking you a question.
Yes.
You now all you want to do is talk about he doesn't get power play time. He doesn't. Listen,
but
how many power plays a night do teams get? That's a big part of the NHL. Power play. It's a huge part.
I think at the end of the day, we're still talking about a 22-year-old. I think that's the most important thing. Like you can't just say what his ceiling is at this point of his career. There's still so much room to develop.
Somebody commented in the chat and said, haha, it's like these guys are unevenly aged marriage, kind of like watching a car crash. Quaddy, I guess. I don't know what the actual I don't know. So, okay, we disagree. For the record, I think Lafreniere is a good NHL player, but hearing people on social media all night last night tell me he's an elite playmaker.
No, but I agree with you on that. He's not.
Hysterical. And you telling us that on the show yesterday that this is a guy who's going to score 100 points, and now you want to die on the hill of him scoring 100 points. You're making more bets, okay? You're writing more checks you probably can't cash, and you're just digging the hole deeper and deeper with this stuff.
I don't want to make this something like bigger than it is, but I also do think this is like sort of the issue with just where we're at right now in like media and players, because players see this kind of like, they see people bashing them. Like Lafreniere has gotten the bust phrase thrown around now for like 3 years already. And it's got to affect players mentally when they see this stuff constantly. And I think the fact that, there is takes around a 22-year-old kid being, called a bust or whatever, saying he fucking sucks. Like there are people probably in his DMs all the time. Like everyone, you know what I mean? Like
every DM, Johnny, like, after you do a broadcast, do people never hate tweet you during a broadcast?
I mean, I don't think I've done a big enough broadcast for people to do that.
Okay. Well, listen, man, here's the reality. If you choose a job that is a performance-based job in front of 18,000 people every night, and maybe 1 million people on TV, whatever it is, that comes with the territory. It's hard. but that's why you make millions and millions of dollars to deal with it. Try playing in the NFL and fumbling in the Super Bowl in front of 150 million people. Okay. It's part of the job you chose. If you don't want to be under the microscope, find a job at a library where nobody's going to bother you. I mean, like, I just think that argument is just more of this we're coddling him and making excuses for him when nobody's saying he's not a good player. He's proven this year finally to be I'm going to last in this league. In the last couple of years, you weren't even sure he was going to make it.
No, listen, trust me. The last 3 years, I never had this opinion on Lafreniere.
You're worried this guy wasn't even going to last in the NHL.
No, I fully own that. I said, I actually said prior to the season, I was like, Kaapo Kakko is going to be the dude. Lafreniere might struggle a bit, and boy, was I wrong with how opposite it's been. Even though Kakko is now,
no shit.
Kakko's now solidified his role a little bit on the third line. But I'm not sitting here saying Kaapo Kakko is going to be a 100-point player. Like, I have learned what Kaapo Kakko is. I've watched him play every night. I would never go out and say that. But from watching Alex Lafreniere every single night, I think the potential is there. I don't think his ceiling is 60, 70 points. And that's all I wanted to say. And that's all this argument was. But it's turned into something bigger than I thought it would be.
Last comment we got from Kyle Hoffman, one of my Flyers Warriors guys. He said, Owen Tippett is an example of how things can turn quickly for these first rounders. A lot is mental, and the season will be huge for him. I don't know about the comparison between Lafreniere and Owen Tippett. Tippett also has a way different situation, way different opportunity, way different coach, a team that had no expectations. But it is good to see him, basically have the Flyers win that Claude Giroux trade with the way that Owen Tippett has played, and give Torts a lot of credit for getting it out of him. What do you got? We
got a comment from AWIT82. More chance of Ottawa making the playoffs than Laf getting 100 points.
It's just, but it is funny though. All the people that probably usually shit on him on social media, the minute we started saying you were crazy for that take, they all rallied around Lafreniere. He probably got more support on Twitter last night from Rangers Nation than he ever normally does.
I'm just telling you, like, I know there's stats, there's eye tests, there's actual results. And just from watching the kid play every night, his impact on the game has continued to grow. And there's been multiple games this year where he's been the Rangers' best player. Like against Dallas the other night, he was so good. He literally created 5 extremely high danger chances himself, and there was nothing to show for it. And that's kind of all I've been trying to say this year, is that although there is nothing to show for it, the growth and the opportunity has been there for him. And that's why I have started to believe in him way more. But I actually wanted to ask you a question about a different player, because when we were talking about this elite conversation last night, I was trying to think of like, who's the perfect player in the NHL right now that teeters that line of, is he just a good player or is he an elite player? And the name that came to mind, who we actually have talked about a lot on the show, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on this player. But Matt Barzal was the guy where I was like, I think he's elite.
No, he's not.
But I don't know if he's really proven it yet.
He's not elite.
No, I know I think he teeters that line.
Yeah, he's very good. I put him in the Mika Zibanejad category. He's very good, but he's not elite. Okay, he had one season where he put up, let's call it elite numbers. His first year, 85 points, and then he's just been a very good player. He's been an all-star. This goes back to what I said earlier, Johnny. Is not every guy in the all-star game is elite.
No, I know that's what made me think of it.
And another comment in the chat from Quaddy or K Waddy. I'm not sure which one to go with there, but the question is does one 100-point season make you elite? And the answer would be no, in my opinion.
Like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is an elite. He had 100 points last year.
You could go off for one season, but to be elite, you need to continue to do it. You need to continue to dominate. You need to continue to produce. You need to continue to, hopefully get your team into the playoffs and stuff like that. So no, in my opinion, 100-point season does not make you an elite player. Consistency of dominating the league and dominating games and putting up massive, massive numbers like, Kucherov and McKinnon and McDavid and Pasta and Matthews and Panarin and, Quinn Hughes, he teeters on being elite, right? He looks elite.
He had a great year last year too. He's followed up this year.
But he's trending towards being elite, right? Jack Hughes, like these are elite players. Like, look, Noah Dobson, I have him on this list, right? Because he's like a top 30 scorer in the NHL. Noah might become elite based on what we're seeing, but he's not there yet. He's not. He just isn't.
How old is he? I think he's 24.
He's probably like 24 years old now, something
24.
like that. So it does not, you need to do it. Is Kyle Connor elite from Jay Miller? What do you think of that?
Ooh, that's a good one. He's definitely an elite goal scorer. I'd say he's the most underrated player in the NHL by far. He's put up like back-to-back 40-goal years, I think, right? Something like that.
I don't know his stats offhand, but that's a good one, Jay. Honestly, let me just be totally honest with you on that, Jay. I don't watch enough Winnipeg.
Yeah, me neither. But you can be an elite goal scorer, but not an elite player. I think he's an elite goal scorer. I don't know if he's an elite player.
So what I would say is that I only really catch Winnipeg when they're playing someone on like a marquee TNT game, like an ESPN Sunday game, whatever, if they get them, which they don't normally do. So I don't necessarily have, I don't have a good feel for that question. I think he's at least very good. He's a hair under being an elite player.
But you can admit he's an elite goal scorer.
Yeah, listen, he had 47 goals and then he had 31. This year he has 20, but he's been hurt. He's missed a lot of time. But 31 is good, but that doesn't, you need to be 40 plus every year to be an elite goal scorer. I mean, you really do. I think there's less elite goal scorers than there are elite playmakers. Like, I think there's more guys who can be elite passers and visionaries than there are elite goal scorers. J-Rock says, is it important to have the labels of elite? What purpose does it serve? Or is it just for fun conversation? I think it's for fun conversation. And I think, when you're talking to coaches, like, when I used to do my coaches meetings before every game last year in Chicago, like, coaches will refer to other players like that. He's an elite shooter. He's an elite power play guy. Like, it's a label coaches and GMs use, but they save it for the top category of players, right? Like, again, you're not giving that to everybody there's really one, maybe two on each team, but not every team even has one necessarily in that category. Most teams do at this point, but not everyone. Probably half or half the teams, I would say, have a pure elite level player. So that's a fair question. Have any of these players putting up big numbers actually help their team? I would argue 200-foot 20-goal scorer is more valuable. Look, that's a fair statement. That's about team construction from D. Ely and how a GM puts their team together. Because look, we've seen the Auston Matthews group have a hard time getting through the playoffs, and Matthews is an elite player and definitely an elite goal scorer, but also an elite player. McDavid hasn't been to the conference finals yet. He hasn't been to the Stanley Cup finals yet. He's been to a conference final. And right now, the way Edmonton's playing, they don't necessarily look like a team that's going to, defend hard enough and make it back to the maybe. But look, that's a fair question. Although the response I would give you to that is Kucherov has played in a number of finals and had a huge impact on those finals. And I think we can look around the NHL at, some of the runs Boston had. And look, Bergeron, he was never an elite point guy, but he was an elite hockey player. He really was, and he led his team. More of a complete
he's
player.
Such a Canes guy. He's such a Canes guy. I'd rather have a guy like Sebastian Aho than many of those so-called elite players.
Patrick Kane has been an elite NHL player for a very long time and took his team to 3 cups, surrounded by other elite, I think, Duncan Keith was an elite player.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put Seabrook as an elite player. He was probably that tier right under. Jonathan Taves, probably, an elite leader, but was an elite player. He's probably in that second, he's still a Hall of Famer though. So it's really just all about conversation and debate and looking at these different things. But, ultimately, I wanted to make sure we defined, at least for us, how we talk about elite.
And we agree on that.
Yes, we do. We do agree on that. So, look,
I wanted it to be clear too. I'm not sitting here saying I think Alex Lafreniere is an elite player in the NHL.
No, but I think you did say that he's an elite playmaker. No, you didn't say that.
Didn't say that.
Okay,
no.
all right, fine.
No.
But a lot of people on X was after that video were coming for me saying that he's an elite playmaker, but he just doesn't get. Yeah. If he's an elite playmaker, he's on the first power play.
But even tying this back, and this is, I don't know why this just came to my brain. This might you actually, I will give you full permission to shit on me for this one, but as
Vinny
far as
Trocheck, no, let's not.
No. This is
I'm not talking about you. D. Ely is asking about certain players, like not elite, very good player,
very
but
good.
Not elite,
very good,
not elite.
Just the development conversation we were going to. Wasn't Matt Gilroy like 25 when he was on your team and won the Hobie Baker?
He might have even been 26, but
yeah. Like isn't that like crazy how like all these guys develop and he became a pretty solid NHL player? No, like
well, not great. No, he had a tough time. And listen, Matt Gilroy was an unbelievable college player. He was an NHLer. I don't know how many games he played. Maybe Vic can look that up. Matt Gilroy. But he struggled in the NHL. He struggled finding a home. He struggled finding his way. He struggled putting up numbers, and he was an offensive-minded guy.
But that's a 26-year-old playing college. Alexi
right. I mean, listen, he went 22. In as a 20-year-old walk-on. He played 225 games, so he had a nice little chunk, and then he probably played in Europe. Now he coaches at the U.S. national team, and he's making his way as a coach. Super smart hockey player. But, yeah, I mean, look, let me ask you a question. What's your point of that? Like, I don't
just saying how the age gap, like not everyone at 22 is going to be their best. Not everyone at
dude, of course 20, not. No,
but that goes back to our whole conversation.
Well, so let me ask you this then, and then this will be my last comment about Alex Lafreniere. You brought up Nathan MacKinnon. You said early in his career he was getting 50, 60 points. Okay. Mm-hmm. When MacKinnon was 22 or in his third or fourth year in the NHL, which is where we're at with Lafreniere. Actually, we're year 4 going on 5. Okay. For Lafreniere. Mm-hmm. Do you really think you're seeing the same level?
Not at all. Okay. Not at all. But also Nathan MacKinnon was brought into a pretty, dog shit organization at the time. They were not very good. They were, I think, last place his first year. They made the playoffs his second year, but it's a different situation that he was brought into. Like, and I know that is a crutch, and that's something that like I can use as something to lean on. Like the same with Jack Hughes. He was brought in to be a franchise savior, which he has been. Jack Hughes has been, and I'm not comparing it to because Jack Hughes is my favorite player in the NHL. I've been open about that for a little over a year now. Like I love that kid. Yeah. He's so fun to watch. But the situations are different. Like I think Lafreniere could have hit maybe 60, 70 points by now had he been drafted by Ottawa or, one of those teams. Like I just think
coulda, woulda, shoulda, man.
This whole thing is could have. It's this whole thing.
No, right now we're talking about
whichever side you're on.
We're talking about what's already happened.
The whole thing is hypothetical.
So J-Rock has a comment in the chat right now. The most important thing has to be heart. I'd rather have 23 players who have heart and outwork everyone than 2 filthy goal scorers. Look, everybody in the NHL.
How's that gone for Carolina?
Everybody in the NHL works hard. Teams manage the puck, some better than others. Some turn it up more than others. And look, before we started the show, Johnny and I were having this conversation, and this will bleed us in. Oh, actually, we're going to talk about Matthews next, not
we can just switch
the Boston Edmonton game. But look, J-Rock, I got to tell you something. If I was starting an NHL team right now, like as much as McDavid is the best player in the world, I think I would rather start my team with Cale Makar, just because if my own opinion is I would build from the back. Like if I had to choose between Makar and McDavid, I'd start with Makar. I really would. I'd rather have Makar and MacKinnon. Okay. And MacKinnon is under McDavid. McDavid's in a world of his own. Then McDavid and, Bouchard or Nurse or whatever, because I have a lot of value on building through the back end. Me personally, there's obvious bias there based on the position that I played, but I see what's successful and I see the D-cores that are winning in the Stanley Cup every year. And they usually have one thing in common, a really deep stacked defensive core. So we saw that last night in the Boston-Edmonton game. While goaltending wasn't great for either team, Swayman laid an egg last night. I mean, he was pretty bad, which is fine, honestly. Ullmark will come back tonight, and then Swayman will be fine. He's just been so good this season. But Stuart Skinner was terrible last night. I mean, he lets up 3 soft goals. 6-5 is not the way for Edmonton. And honestly, Boston hasn't defended great or been real thorough with the puck as of late either. But look, I only saw the first period of the game, and then I watched the condensed version this morning, so I really only saw highlights. Charlie McAvoy, I mean, we talked about this on the show with Butchie yesterday. He's just in another world, but you watched more of the game than I did. You stayed up. So, give us a little idea and a little breakdown on your thoughts on that game, because wow, it had everything.
Yeah, first of all, this goal was unbelievable. But yeah, that game was, to me, in my opinion, one of the games of the year, if not the game of the year so far. It had fighting, it had physicality, it had high scoring. And, listen, as much as I do love watching a good 1-0, 2-1 hockey game that's, back and forth, tightly played, everyone loves a good barn burner too. Like, I love seeing a 6-5 score, and, those aren't very common. But last night I thought Edmonton totally dominated the third period. And yes, I was up at 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, sweating.
I had 26 text messages I woke up to, FYI, 26 from Johnny.
I was sweating out the last leg of a parlay to hit $1,200. I had Edmonton money line, and I was so fired up when they came back from down 4-2. They were actually down 4-1, and they came back tied up. Corey Perry got into a fight. He scored the tying goal at 4-4, but then David Pastrnak comes back and scores, in my opinion, a beautiful goal. You think Skinner or any NHL goalie that's going to be on a contending team has to stop that?
Yeah, let's show that. Yeah,
I know you're going to come in with a strong opinion here, but I want to say too, David Pastrnak's one of maybe top 5 most elite goal scorers in the NHL.
I think top 2, by the way. I think after Matthews. I think he's the most elite goal scorer after Matthews. But what I'm saying about this goal is that, to me, Skinner has to come up with this save. And if you can freeze it for us right here, Vic.
I think you got to give more credit to the shooter, though.
Listen, here's my question for you. Why is Skinner not out further? And why is Skinner leaking to the middle? I think there's another camera angle after this, or is it just one? No, it's just the one shot. Look at Skinner's positioning. Okay, to me, he's off the angle. He's giving up the short side. He's not fully out of the blue paint. There's no white sweaters around. Why not be out another step or two, taking away more net? And I think he's got to come up with this save. It's late in the third period, 7 minutes to go. He's just, to me, he's too far back in his crease, and I think he's got to make the save. I'm not saying it's a soft goal, but I think he's got to make the save. Unlike the Marchand goal, which to me was just soft. That was horrible. I mean, that was just a soft goal.
But on the Pastrnak goal, I think Pasta's scoring maybe on like 8 out of 10 goalies on that shot. Like, he's at the hash marks. Like, that's one of the best goal scorers in the NHL. He's scoring that goal more often than not. I don't care who the fuck's in net.
To me, honestly, that looked more like an Auston Matthews goal. Like, we see Matthews score from that spot all the time on that wrister. Pasta's more of that one-timer over on that left side of the power play, or, he makes those crazy individual, moves around the net. But I don't know. I just didn't think Skinner was positionally sound there. I don't think his feet were set. I don't think he had his position in the net. And if you want to be a number one goalie in the NHL with 7 minutes left, you got to come up with a save. You just do. There was no screen. Well, maybe a little screen. Pasta does a nice job of using, but it's
also David Pastrnak at the hash marks.
I understand that, Johnny, but we're talking about a team that has their sights set on the Stanley Cup. You need number one goaltending, consistent number one goaltending. And if you want to be that, you have to come up with that save. You just do. I want
to talk about the overtime goal too, because he's getting a lot of crap for that poke check, but something that was missed or that hasn't been talked about. I thought, I texted my buddy Jazz, who's the researcher for TNT. I was like, bring this up right now, because Evander Kane, McLeod, and Nurse were on the ice in overtime. The puck they iced the puck, and Evander Kane could have easily won the race to the puck, but those guys were gassed and they all went to the bench, I guess, thinking that it wouldn't have been called icing. I don't know why else they wouldn't go after that puck to win the race and then maybe go for a change. But they screwed themselves. They trapped themselves on the ice. Boston wins the faceoff.
Who are you talking about? What player in particular?
Kane, Nurse, and McLeod. All three of them were gassed. Kane specifically, though, he had a rough game.
Flush it out.
Evander Kane had a rough game. He had that turnover
you can be harsh on a player. Go for it.
He had the turnover that I don't like being harsh on players, but he had the turnover that led to the Pastrnak goal. And then in overtime, he doesn't go after the puck. He lets it be an icing. Then he gets stuck on the ice. You see him dive bomb at McAvoy. fully laying down, looked like he's going on a slip and slide. McAvoy dangles, comes in and goes back in on Skinner. But Skinner got screwed by the 3 guys on the ice because they were all dead. They were out there for like a minute and a half.
Sale. That was ugly.
Terrible.
I don't put the game with that's just Charlie McAvoy making an unbelievable play.
But Skinner's getting so much blame for this poke check attempt, which, granted, he's probably, could have played that a little bit differently.
You got guys sliding in front of you, guys sliding. It's fucking melee. It's 3-on-3. Like, I'm going to be hard on the guy when I think he should make a save. To me, McAvoy just made an unbelievable play there. You tip your cap to him and you move on with that. So that was a good hockey game. Maybe a Stanley Cup preview. We said that about Dallas, New York the other night. This could happen. It could. It really could. And on the other side of Canada, even though this game happened in Arizona, probably the last time that Matty Nyes and Auston Matthews are going to play a game in Arizona. Matthews just continues, man. 2 more goals last night. The first goal, I think I saw Jay Rosehill tweet this, and sorry for not prepping you on this one, Vic, because it just came into my mind. But he made a statement on Twitter how does Matthews keep scoring from such a quote unquote useless area? Like, he's down in the corner basically, and he just throws one towards the net. And it just, there's obviously something to it, because he keeps scoring goals like this from every angle of the ice. And
no, that one's like his 4th or 5th from that specific spot this year.
He is giving us no indication that he's not going to score 70 goals this year. And I said it on Leafs radio yesterday morning with Carlo Colavacchio. Could I get it? Koliakovo. I have an accent. Okay. Close. I said it yesterday on their show. If he gets 70 plus, then he should be in the Hart. He's right there for the Hart. If he doesn't, well, he doesn't have the assists to back it up, and the overall point total to back it up. So he's unbelievable. He just continues to put on a show. Here's their next 3 games, though, Johnny. They've got Vegas, Colorado, and Vegas over their next 3 games. At Vegas, at Colorado, home versus Vegas. Morgan Riley's coming back, and they could be 5-0 without him. What happens when
they are 5-0 without him?
Oh, so last night was 5-0. Okay, sorry. 5, yeah. I thought it was 4, so it's 5. So here's my question to you. What happens when they lose to Vegas when Morgan Riley comes back for his first game off the suspension? What is going to happen in Toronto?
Is it not more obvious that not only are they losing the first game back, they're going to lose 3 straight?
You think they're going to go 3? You think they're going to go totally ice cold?
It's how the Leafs work, man. This is it every time. It's so obvious. Vic's like, I'll bet you. But they
did almost collapse against the Coyotes last night. That game got to 4-3 and it got tight quick.
Yeah, it was like 3-2, then 4-2, then 4-3. There was a couple times where Vic was sweating a bit, but I think if anyone's watched the Toronto Maple Leafs over the last few years, I think they'd bet the Leafs lose 3 straight more than not.
All right, so is this an official position bet against our producer Vic?
I don't know what we're gonna bet. I think this is more in good fun, just like a good way to laugh.
Because you've got a lot of bets out on the table now.
But this is a good way to laugh.
They're getting expensive for you quickly.
This isn't something that I like. I think the Leafs are playing bad, and I think they're gonna lose 3 straight. It's just the narrative and the vibe around Toronto is that this would be typical of them to happen,
Manny is asking me, Colby, is that a Trenton Titans hat? So it is the Trenton Titan logo, but it's a New Jersey Titans hat. So I work with the New Jersey Titans youth program and the NAHL team. I know our guys over there are always Craig DeRemus, Kyle Shapiro. Those guys are always Bobby DeRico. They're always watching the show. So this is just, after we get done the show, I head down to Middletown to jump on the ice with those guys. Our guy Danny Howard and George Haviland, they also watch the show as well. So we love the support from our Titans fam in Jersey. And you used to play for those guys back in the day in Long Island, right, Johnny?
Yeah, I played for Craig in 11th grade. Probably the first coach who ever told me I could play D1, actually.
And he's to this day defends that you were a good player. So
I was a good player.
I listen. You found your way onto a Hockey East Division I hockey team. I'll never say you weren't a good hockey player.
My confidence just got destroyed in college, and
I'll give you a lot of shit about a lot of things, but I won't degrade the fact that you were a Division I hockey player and you went to UMass and you played at Mercyhurst. That you never hear me attack that.
I know. I'm also a Division I hot taker.
You're a Division I hot taker. Yeah, Lafreniere 100 points. So,
but all right. I do want to shout out the chat as well. Ethan Zaretsky, who works with us, he said the energy in the chat right now is awesome, and I agree. It's been nonstop the whole show. We appreciate you guys tuning in. We love getting to the comments. What were you gonna say?
We knew that today's debate would bring the chat alive.
But also it's tough for me to debate this one because it comes from a passionate place. So yes, I understand the bias behind it, but like,
which one are we talking? Lafreniere?
Yeah, but I still won't back down from it.
Like, and isn't he kind of mean to you when you see him face to face?
No. There was one question where he gave me a short answer that people were like, giving me shit for. But still a great question, I think. If he took it in a different direction.
You asked some good questions. I'll give you that. You get in the press conference and raise your hand like a good student, and you get your questions in with Lavi. Lavi always gives you thorough answers. He always gives you thorough answers. Because he probably appreciates that you actually know the game, where most of the questions that he's getting in those press conferences are from people who had their heads buried in their laptop all game. So...
But I do want to say, like, for people who don't know, just a cool kind of behind the scenes thing. Every team's press conferences are different. Like, I've been to Islander Devils press conferences, and there's people like passing out a microphone, and like you raise your hand for the microphone. The Rangers is a free for all. You got to just like, if there's a second of pause, you got to get your question. And it's pretty different or pretty wild how different every organization is with their press conferences. So I think that's like a cool, behind like the first couple of times I was in there, like, last year I was terrified to like speak over anyone, like it's just a pecking order.
You don't want to get daggers from Larry Brooks.
Oh no, definitely not.
So,
but there's a lot of things you learn along the way.
I know we're 2 weeks and a day to the trade deadline. Let's table that to next week. Let's see what happens this weekend, and then we'll jump into that on Monday, Johnny, because I want to talk about Patrick Kane returning to Chicago this weekend. We obviously don't have a show on Fridays, so we're not going to have an opportunity to discuss it tomorrow. It's the same day that he's coming back this weekend to play his first game back in Chicago. That should be a pretty emotional thing for the Chicago Blackhawks fans because, Kane is a living legend there, well-deserved living legend. He had some quotes yesterday or the day before that basically said, had they wanted me to come back, even if they said we need you to work with us on contract, I probably would have had a hard time saying no. I don't necessarily believe that, to be honest with you. I think it's easy to say that now because you're not there, you're gone, you've moved on, and it's easy to kind of throw shade back in the organization. I don't think Kane has any attachment to any of the people left in the organization, top to bottom, management, coaching staff, even, Rocky Wirtz passed away. And that was really, I know Patrick and Rocky Wirtz were super tight. His son took over the team. I don't think the same relationship is there by any means. So I think it's easy for Kaner to throw shade back. But I don't necessarily believe that, by the way, that he would have stayed and been on a team this bad and rode this rebuild out. I just don't.
I mean, he also made it pretty clear he wanted to go to New York. No, like that was pretty
well. Once he decided, yeah.
But I still think nobody wants to really be a part of that situation, right? Like, I mean, it was clear what Chicago was doing the last 1 to 2 years, even. And any player that's had the success that Kane wants, you crave that success. And I think, like you said, Colby, I don't really have anything to really say on that because I just kind of fully agree with what you said. But well,
look,
I'm sure he gets a very nice, welcome back.
He should. I mean, there should be everything, under the sun about him. I think it's going to be really cool for Connor Bedard to get an opportunity to play against Kane. I'm sure the video tributes will be long, and they'll probably be after every whistle. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if they were showing highlights at every TV timeout on the Jumbotron, this and that. So that'll be a cool moment. We'll see how it gets handled, but it's going to be standing ovation after standing ovation. And Kane is incredibly popular, and he's competitive, and he's going to want to score. So what's going to be interesting to see is when he scores at the United Center. I could see the Blackhawks fans cheering for the goal. I really could. That's how much they love Patrick Kane. And honestly, I think it's cool, and I think it's well-deserved.
And I think they're also cheering for their team to lose anyway. So what's the fuck? What does it matter? At
this point, right? You want to go slacking for Macklin. I bet you half the stadium will be wearing Patrick Kane jerseys.
Yeah, for sure. I actually guarantee you maybe there's even a Ranger Patrick Kane jersey in there. I could see that happening. I do kind of want to go off topic, actually, because we have a good question in the chat from Olivia.
Yeah, I saw that.
You saw that? I mean, I think this is something that we could talk about. No,
quickly. Go ahead. You wanted to?
This is off topic. If not today, sometime. Can you explain how teams get to the regional and Frozen Four for college hockey? I'm a Canadian who just started watching college hockey. You want to take it away?
Yeah, so look, they use something called the pairwise rankings. It is a math formula based on wins on the road, wins against top 10 teams, strength of schedule, all these things.
Strength of schedule is the biggest.
And throughout the season, these rankings formulate, and 16 teams make the NCAA tournament. And what happens is the major conferences hold their own conference tournament. Hockey East, the Big Ten, the NCHC, the ECAC, and Atlantic Hockey, and then the CCHA. So there's 6 conferences. The winners of those tournaments all get automatic, you're automatically in because you won your conference tournament. Generally speaking, at least 4 of those teams, 4 of the 6 of those conference champion teams would be in the NCAA tournament anyway. Okay. It doesn't guarantee you a 1 seed. It just guarantees you're in the dance. And then the rest of the tournament is picked using the pairwise. They come up with the field of 16, right? So they pick the other, let's say 13 teams. So it's usually like the top 13 of the pairwise. And then there's maybe 3 surprises based on how conference tournament play ends. Yeah. And then they come up with a bracket. They don't let interconference matchups happen on the opening night. So you'll never play a team from your own conference on the opening night of the regional. And then it just becomes 1 game elimination bracketed format all the way through the Frozen Four. And that's kind of how the flow of the NC tournament goes.
But also, isn't the regional, like, sometimes, and forgive me if I'm wrong here, it's not always based on like location of the school. Like there are times where like a 2nd or 3rd seed goes to play somewhere, and that's like where their home fans are, right?
Right. So what they do is they try to keep schools geographic if they can, because they want to sell more tickets. But what they do, they start with the 1 seeds. Like BU and BC are most likely
wasn't BU North Dakota? Wasn't BU a 1 seed when they played North Dakota in Fargo? Right,
and they were a 3 or 4 seed. So
and they were like the away team. It was crazy.
But like this year, for example, Springfield, Mass, Providence, Rhode Island are 2 regionals. BC will be probably the 1 seed in those 2 regionals, right? So they'll keep them geographically home. They will not play Hockey East teams in the opening round. So that's how the format goes. We'll talk about that as we get closer, because that's a tournament that I do. Before we end today's show, Johnny, 11 NHL games tonight. I don't even really have to ask you this, but what's the few games or the marquee game for you tonight?
Well, I know the first one I'm going to say, and that's the Stadium Series final between the Devils and the Rangers. That's going to be a big one for New York. They're trying to win their 8th straight, or I think 9th straight game. Is it 8? Maybe 9. I think 9. Yeah, 9th straight game. 9th straight game. And then Florida and Carolina, rematch of the Eastern Conference Final last year. Florida's won 6 straight games. Freddie Anderson's returning possibly tonight. He might get that starting goal. So those are the 2 games I'm looking at, obviously, also because Carolina's chasing the Rangers in the Metro, and the Rangers and Devils are playing each other in the Metro. So it's just a big night for the Metropolitan Division. Anything else you got your eye on?
I mean, look, I think Toronto-Vegas is a big game. Let's see if Toronto's really going to trend in the direction of a serious hockey team. They've obviously been on another streak. They've played much better defensively for the most part. They've been hungrier on pucks. It's the second half of a back-to-back, so it could be a tough game against a tough, structured Vegas team. Shea Theodore is back for Vegas. That's huge for Vegas. I know Eichel's out. A lot of people are pissed right now because they think the Vegas Golden Knights are going to keep him out until the playoffs and go and fill his $9.5 or $10 million in cap space. And, round and round we go on the merry-go-round. So, look, a couple other games tonight, Florida, Carolina, that's a big boy game. I think it's more important for Carolina than it is Florida, because I think Florida's the best team in the NHL right now. So if they don't win a game, it's not a big deal. For Carolina, it's more of a measuring stick. How good are they? How good can they really be? Other than that, I mean, yeah, there are other games, but those are probably the games that I'll be most focused on, Johnny. Couple more questions in the chat if we want to hit those before we let them go. J-Rock is saying, look out for Colby's Blackhawks takes. I say this in jest because we talked about your takes earlier this week. Look, I just want to say this about the Blackhawks. I'm a big believer in what Kyle Davidson is doing. And I hope Macklin Celebrini ends up there, because I think it'd be unbelievable to have that duo together for the next 15 years. I mean, you could start counting your Stanley Cups if that's your duo. And you've got this D-core potential you could build around Vlasic and Korchinski and Jones and this and that. My whole thing with Bedard yesterday was, look, Bedard missed 20% of the season and Faber has been incredible. And to say that this isn't a conversation is just being a little too biased and a little too homer. I saw all these people being like, oh yeah, so you would trade Faber for Bedard? No, not in a million years. Bedard is a generational talent, face of the NHL. Faber is going to be a star, potential Norris Trophy candidate D one day, but I'm still not saying I think I would trade them. That's insane. I would hold on to Bedard every wish and luck that I could. But if you're really, truly watching the NHL and you realize a player misses 20% of the games and you watch another player star for that long, saying that's not a conversation is just being a little too biased and a little too homer. And that's kind of what I was thinking. And then go ahead.
You just wanted to put that one to rest, huh?
Well,
that was bothering you. That was bothering you. I could tell.
It was the amount of people that they clearly didn't even watch the video. They just read the top and they didn't watch the video. And then they start spouting these things off at me about how I would trade one for the other. Like, that's like ridiculous. Nobody's saying that whatsoever. That's just hearing what you want to hear. Another question that is in the chat, Johnny, and this one I'm going to give to you. Do you think NC State and UNC will play NCAA hockey in the future? They are the top two teams in the ACCHL and ACHA.
I mean, as soon as college hockey reaches the ACC, I'm moving out of New York and I'm going to work for one of those schools. I love ACC
think it will
basketball.
Happen, though? Or like the SEC, the ACC?
Why not?
Like, do you think it's going to happen?
I don't see why not. If the schools can afford it and they already have good club programs, like NC State especially, I'm pretty sure they like sold out an outdoor game last year.
Yeah. But here, let me throw this at you. Two things you got to keep in mind. Okay. If you're starting a men's program, you got to start a women's program. Okay. Because of Title IX. Okay.
Is that true? Well, because
hold on, let me finish.
Syracuse has women's, but not men.
Right. But so remember, for every men's scholarship there has to be a women's scholarship or vice versa.
Does it work both ways?
If you were to start, yes, you have to have it has to be the same.
How does Syracuse work then?
Well, because they have men's football and they don't have women's football. Okay. Just there, it has to. Yeah, I know. It has to balance each other out. But here's why I worry about it, because I just think that these schools that do without it, they make so much money. Why do they want to dip into their budgets and start hockey programs from nothing? Look, I hope it happens, DE Lee. FYI, I think it would be great, but I don't actually think it's going to happen. That's just
listen, we've seen the support that the Carolina Hurricanes get, and we know how people treat colleges like in that area as well. Like the Duke UNC rivalry is the best rivalry in all of college basketball. There's no reason to say why that couldn't work in hockey.
Listen, but you could say, why doesn't USC start a team? Why doesn't Or, I mean, there's a lot of schools that look like they've got good club hockey programs that they could do it.
But is the support there? But is the support there?
$100 million. They need someone to donate $100 million and say this is for the hockey program, like Terry Pegula did at Penn State. If you want a program, you need a super rich guy or gal to make that donation to kickstart the program. Otherwise, I don't see it happening. I just don't.
But I think the support is already in place for those schools, especially NC State. Like, if you see their club games, they get really big crowds. Like, even a school like the University of Arizona, they're a club team, and they get a shit ton of people at their games. We've seen it work with ASU. Like, they're another school that can come in and probably have a D1 program. I think that's the biggest thing, is getting the support from the local community, from the students.
Pac-12 is kind of falling apart, but yeah.
But you know what I mean? I think that's where you look at it and say, like, who's the new school? St. Augustina? Like,
where, South Dakota or something?
Something like that. Yeah, they play, I think, out of the Sioux Falls rink. And
you need a rink. You need a rink, and you need a huge donation. So, D. Ely, if you've got $100 million sitting around, I would say start her up, okay? And we'll get the college.
Tell your boy Aho to throw in some money.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll get the college hockey people to jump on and pump the program. So, you got anything else, Johnny? I think that's all she wrote today.
Oh yeah, this was a fun one, and we got another show coming Monday. We have the weekend to digest everything, and
you're gonna go You're gonna go post videos on social media all day today of you talking about your boyfriend, Alex Lafreniere.
It's a game day for me, so I won't be too locked into social media. Actually, I'm heading to the SNY studio for a quick hit shortly about tonight's game, so I got to get going here. But big thank you to the
hockey. Interesting.
Yeah. Big thank you to the chat. Big thank you to our producer Vic. This was a fun one. Always a good, healthy debate. I'm sure we're still going to keep going.
You got crushed today, by the way.
I still don't think so.
Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman. That's what today was like.
Who's who?
Come on, we know who's who.
We know who's who. I don't know if either one's that great, but whatever.
Really, Stephen A. Smith is a hell of a debater. I mean, you don't have to agree with the guy, but he brings facts and he comes hard with it. And Max Kellerman used to sit there like a puppy dog with his tail between his legs.
All right, Colby Cohen's the Stephen A. Smith of hockey. You heard it from him first.
No, that's gonna wrap up the show.
That's gonna wrap up the show. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you Monday.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.